That's okay. Do you have time today?
Yep, I have time today.
Get out and shovel.
I do have to do that. That's the next thing after we're done. I got to go out and snow blow.
All right. All right. Give me a minute. Second. Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of David Andy's Honest About Life. Good to have you.
Hi, Andy. Good to be here. It's absolutely wonderful. I love this.
I do too. I do. It's a real pleasure, Dad, to have this opportunity to share this time with you and to ask the kinds of questions that I think a lot of children would ask of their parents if they could. And you and I make a point to set this time aside every week to have conversations that are about some really, in our opinion, interesting topics that the world is talking about, that, I think a lot of kids, if you will, children, have questions about how their parents felt, how they currently feel, how they felt when they were younger about these issues. One of these topics that I teased up in the last session was the one about racism. And I know we have two white guys sitting here having a conversation about racism. So this is a tough one because, automatically we're on one side of the conversation, and that's really too bad because, people don't know us, right? You don't know me. I don't know you. I know you in that I'm your son, and that I've been around you and heard you, talk about these issues. But at the end of the day, we're automatically put into a silo with a certain set of opinions and feelings, and that's really unfortunate. And it feels like that might be getting worse. So a question for you, Dad, is: does it feel like racism is getting more contentious? Races against other races. Does it feel like it's risen to a level where the temperature is just way too hot compared to what you were experiencing when you were younger?
That's a very good question, Andy. I think going back to when I was younger, there were a lot of racial upheavals happening in this country. And we all know Dr. Martin Luther King, a great spokesperson, knew how to bring people together. And it was a hot subject back then, because there were so many things that were bad. Where I grew up in a white community, small town, white. We had one Black person in our school, and that was not good. We needed to have more of an open eye to that topic, because that topic we never even approached in school. And then I think about when you were growing up, Andy, we lived right across the street from a school, totally white school. But yet, because of what Minnesota was going through and the nation was going through, we wanted to integrate. So you had to bus like 45 minutes across town to get to Bethune, which was a majority Black school. But being white, they tried to integrate. I don't know that did what it was meant to do, but I think it helped. And I think along the way, we've had a lot of things that have been helping bring a louder voice to those people of color, that they need to be heard. And I do believe that that's making things better. I don't know. I'd like, these are my opinions. And, my opinion was that I grew up in a very small white town.
Right.
So my opinions probably are definitely, because of that, they're slanted. And I totally want this world to be a better place. And I totally want everybody to be heard. And it's hard for me because we're not there. We're not even close. And we got a lot of work to do to get to that point.
Well, I appreciate, how you feel about it. Again, and I feel like our voices are pretty much almost muted right out of the gate because, again, you got a couple of white guys talking about the issue, right? And so we can't begin to know what it's like to be a person of color. And I think you would admit it. I certainly would admit it. That's absolutely true. I did for 4 or 5 years participate in that integration um, effort. Was bused from one part of Minneapolis into North Minneapolis, and as everyone knows, North Minneapolis is going through some challenges. And I got to say, my experience with that was it's a tremendous experience that I wouldn't change for anything. Because I think you probably felt bad that I had to, instead of walk across the street, I had to bus 45 minutes. So you spent a lot more time in transit. But I wouldn't change that experience of being one of the few white kids in an all black school. I wouldn't change that for anything. And because of that, you become much more empathetic, sympathetic. I imagine not everybody does, but I know I certainly did. And I know that a lot of folks are going to see this video and they're just going to be like, here's a couple of guys just talking, a couple of white talking heads. The issue is huge and overwhelming, and I get it. I get it. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it. I mean, we have to talk about it. And to your point, I think there's a lot of little good efforts being made. We call them little because they feel little, even though they're probably monumental compared to what was happening in the past. But to your point, a lot of these efforts stacked on top of each other over time will make the kind of difference, right? The kind of change that we're hoping for.
Yeah, I totally see that, Andy. And I think, I've seen you, and I've seen you grow up, and I've seen you through time, and I wouldn't change that for an instant. You being able to experience a more well-rounded education because of what you did. And I wouldn't change that for the world. And I think you've become a much better person because of it. And you were the minority in those walls. You were the minority in that building. But yet, and as you said, you become empathetic but not even close to what people of color have had to go through. Yeah. You touched on it. You got a little taste of it, but it still doesn't amount to what really goes on in a colored person's life. The people of color have had to put up with stuff that we couldn't even imagine. I can't imagine.
I can't either, Deb. And let's end it there. Again, these are another big topics that really belong at a point where there's a lot of people involved, a lot of voices, a lot of coming together, and it just requires more time than we have here today. But thank you, Dad, for your willingness to participate in a conversation like this, in particular about racism, because it's just so challenging. And I'm grateful that you're willing to have this chat with me about that, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.